They laughed at her until they learned who she really was. It all started on an ordinary morning at First National Bank, a day 3 employees would remember for the rest of their lives. An elderly black woman walked in quietly, holding a small plastic bag and wearing worn-out sneakers and a torn coat. The manager, Jessica, just 28, wrinkled her nose in disgust. "Security, get that beggar out of here before she scares away the customers," she barked. The woman's name was Violet Washington, 72 years old. What no one knew was that she wasn't homeless at all. She was the billionaire founder and majority owner of the very bank they worked for. That morning, Violet had decided to run a little experiment. After decades of building her financial empire, she wanted to see how her employees treated people who looked poor or powerless. Her disguise was flawless: thrift store clothes, messy hair, and the tired posture of someone who had known hardship. She stepped toward the counter and said softly, "Please, I just need to withdraw some money." Jessica ignored her. Next to her, Tyler, a 22-year-old teller, laughed cruelly. "Withdraw? From where? The dump." The smell alone could clear the room. The third employee, Amanda, didn't even look up from her computer. "Jess, call the cops. These homeless people are getting bold. They think they can just walk in anywhere." Violet stood there silently, watching every sneer and smirk. Inside, she felt both hurt and resolute. This bank had been built on her promise to serve everyone, rich or poor. "Ma'am, you need to leave," said the security guard, shifting uncomfortably. "I am a customer," Violet replied firmly. "I've had an account here for over 50 years. Tyler laughed again. "50 years? Sure you have, lady." Jessica joined in, shaking her head. "Auntie, go find a shelter. This place is for working people." What they didn't realize was that the old woman standing before them owned the company. While they mocked her, the phone in her coat pocket buzzed, messages from CEOs and partners handling deals worth millions. Violet took a deep breath. "Very well," she said calmly. "I'll handle this another way." She glanced up at the security cameras, each one recording every insult and every smirk. Then she turned and walked out. "Don't come back," Jessica shouted as the glass door closed behind her. Outside, under the blazing July sun, Violet pulled out her phone and dialed a private number, one known only to a handful of people. "Marcus, it's me," she said quietly. "Come to the Fifth Avenue branch. Bring the resignation papers." Across the street, Violet looked back through the window. Jessica, Tyler, and Amanda were laughing, imitating her walk, mocking her voice, completely unaware of who she really was, and how their laughter had just ended their careers. What happened next became a powerful lesson in respect and humanity, a reminder that judging someone by their appearance can cost you more than just your job. When arrogance meets consequence. Inside the bank, Jessica couldn't stop bragging. "Did you see how fast she ran when I said I'd call the police?" She laughed, acting out the scene as if she'd won some great victory. "These homeless people need to learn their place," she added proudly. Tyler was already on his phone, recording an Instagram story. "Another day saving the bank from undesirables," he said into the camera, adding hashtags like #securityfirst and #hardworking. Within minutes, the post had dozens of likes and laughing emojis from co-workers. Amanda typed in the staff WhatsApp group, "You guys missed it. A beggar tried to withdraw money here. Jess kicked her out." Across the street, Violet stood silently, watching through the window. Her heart ached as memories from decades ago returned. She remembered the day she'd signed the founding papers of First National Bank, 45 years earlier. She was just 27 then, a young black woman determined to build a bank that treated everyone with dignity, especially those rejected by the system. How many times had she herself been humiliated like that? How many times had she walked into a bank and been made to feel invisible? A calm voice broke her thoughts. "Miss Washington." It was Marcus Thompson, her trusted advisor of 15 years. At 52, he was one of the few people who knew the full extent of her fortune and her story. "I got your call," he said softly, holding a folder. "The papers are ready." "Marcus," Violet said, still watching the trio laughing inside, "do you remember why we created the Financial Inclusion Program?" "To make sure low-income people could access the same services as everyone else," he replied immediately. That was your first initiative when we only had one branch. And our mission statement? She asked quietly. Marcus smiled faintly. Where every person is valued, regardless of background. It's engraved at every branch entrance. Violet nodded. Interesting how easily some people forget that. Back inside, Jessica was on the phone with the regional manager, Mr. Davidson, bragging about how she'd handled a security threat. Sir, we might need tighter surveillance, she said. A homeless woman came in today claiming she's had an account here for 50 years. Can you believe that? Davidson chuckled. 50 years. She must have been a child when the bank opened. You did the right thing, Jessica. We can't let this place turn into a shelter. Exactly, Tyler chimed in proudly. I even posted on LinkedIn about how we maintain our standards. It's already getting attention. Amanda added, my mom always says, tell me who you spend time with, and I'll tell you who you are. We can't normalize these people walking in here. None of them had any idea who they were mocking. Violet Washington had grown up exactly like the people they looked down on. The daughter of a cleaning lady and a doorman, she had known poverty, rejection, and humiliation. She'd been followed in stores, ignored by clerks, and treated as if she didn't belong. At 16, she made herself a promise that one day she'd create spaces where every person was treated with respect, no matter what they looked like or how much they earned. That promise became First National Bank. And now, her own employees had shattered it. Marcus glanced at her face, calm but unyielding. He knew that look. Miss Washington, what are you planning to do? He asked carefully. Violet's tone was composed but firm. First, I want reports from the last 6 months, every complaint or case where a customer was turned away or treated poorly. No exceptions. Marcus nodded silently, taking notes. Second, she continued, I want a full review of the social media activity of those 3 employees, every post that could damage the bank's image. And third? Marcus asked, though he already sensed what was coming. Violet finally smiled, not with warmth, but with precision. It was the quiet, confident smile of a woman who had built an empire by confronting exactly this kind of prejudice. Third, she said, I want their resignation letters ready before the evening news. The lesson that would shake an entire institution. Third, Violet said quietly, you're going to find out exactly what kind of people they are, Marcus. Because those who discriminate once usually do it again. And I have a feeling what we saw that day was only the beginning. Across the street, inside the bank, Tyler was at it again. He posted another photo on Instagram, this time mocking Violet's hunched posture. His caption read, when you have to remind the special ones that a bank isn't a charity. #reality #work. Within minutes, the post had 50 comments, friends and co-workers laughing, sending clapping emojis, cheering him on. What Tyler didn't know was that every like, every emoji, every cruel comment was being recorded by someone who had the power to erase not just his job, but his entire future in banking. Violet slipped her phone back into her pocket and spoke calmly. They have no idea who they're dealing with, Marcus. Their ignorance is about to cost them more than they can imagine. Each new post, each mocking word only strengthened her resolve. It wasn't rage that drove her now, it was something deeper. A quiet, unshakable determination built from a lifetime of fighting the same kind of prejudice she had just witnessed. The next 2 days passed slowly. Violet hadn't slept, not out of anger, but because her mind was in constant motion, replaying every moment from that marble-floored lobby. She was dissecting it, turning it over, analyzing it, as only a strategist could. That same mind had turned hardship into a $2.3 billion empire, and now it was preparing to turn humiliation into reform. Sitting in her office on the 47th floor of Benson Financial Tower, Violet gazed out over Manhattan. The city stretched endlessly below her, yet her focus was on the 3 thick files spread across her glass desk. Marcus, she said softly, I need you to handle something delicate. Her advisor entered the room carrying a tablet and a stack of reports. The documents you asked for are ready, Miss Washington, he said gravely. And what we found is deeply troubling. Violet opened the first folder. Jessica Miller, 28. Manager for 2 years, Marcus began. She's posted 47 stories mocking customers she considers unfit for the banking environment. She even runs a WhatsApp group called Premium Clientele where she and other employees share photos of elderly, poor, or minority customers, always with cruel jokes. Violet closed her eyes for a brief moment. Each word felt like another blow to the very mission she'd dedicated her life to building. "Continue," she said quietly. "Tyler Johnson. 22, Marcus continued, his voice tightening. He has over 50,000 TikTok followers. He regularly uploads videos making fun of people he calls financial losers. Last week, he secretly filmed an 80-year-old woman struggling to fill out a form. His caption read, 'When age hits and dementia sets in.' The video has over 200,000 views and thousands of laughing comments." Violet's jaw tightened, but she didn't interrupt. Marcus opened the third file. Amanda Foster. Professional on LinkedIn by day, but her personal accounts tell a different story. She posts about how some people deserve to be poor, and she's argued that banks should screen customers more strictly. Her words, not mine. Silence filled the room. Violet turned to the window, watching the tiny figures moving on the sidewalks far below. Ordinary people, many of whom trusted her institutions with their savings, their dreams, their dignity. "Marcus," she said finally, her voice low but steady, "what worries me most isn't just what they've done. It's how comfortable they felt doing it in public. That tells me this attitude runs deeper than just 3 employees." She walked toward the far wall where an old photograph hung, the first branch of First National Bank, back in 1978. In the photo, a young Violet, just 27, was cutting the ribbon in front of a modest building, her eyes full of hope. "I built this bank," she said softly, "because I was exactly like the people they humiliate today. I was the daughter of a cleaning lady and a doorman. I was followed in stores, treated like I didn't belong. And I swore, that one day I'd build a place where everyone would be treated with respect." Marcus nodded slowly. He had heard this story before, but never with this much emotion in her voice. "Miss Washington," he asked carefully, "what do you want me to do? Should I fire them?" Violet turned around. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with resolve. "No, Marcus," she said. "Not yet. First, we're going to teach them, and the entire company, what respect truly means." They'd hung themselves, and she was ready to show them why. "No," Violet said, steady and cold. "Firing them is too small. What they did needs a lesson, one that everyone will feel. People who humiliate others should understand there are real consequences." She opened her laptop and laid out orders with the precision of a CEO who'd never been surprised by human cruelty. "First," she told Marcus, "hire a behavioral audit firm, quietly. I want everything: their work histories, finances, education, social profiles, the whole picture. Second, schedule meetings with compliance and legal. Find every law they may have broken with those posts. Pull precedents for dismissals tied to public misconduct." "And third," Violet said, a familiar hard smile forming, the same one she wore before sealing billion-dollar deals, "we'll give them a public lesson. But we'll let their own actions do the damage. They'll hang themselves with their own ropes." Meanwhile, back at the branches, the 3 kept posting. Jessica bragged online about denying a loan to a woman who couldn't even speak English. Her story racked up 200 likes in an hour. Tyler filmed a TikTok in the restroom mocking homeless people. Amanda ran a Telegram channel where she shared photos of customers and snide commentary about who deserved help. Unaware, they kept supplying the evidence Violet needed: timestamps, captions, screenshots, all of it recording their cruelty in real time. Violet watched the feed calmly. "They're making our work easier," she told Marcus. "Every post builds the case." Then the audit results arrived. Violet opened the envelope, and for the first time in days she allowed herself a true smile. The files revealed an irony so perfect it felt like justice. A Jessica was deep in debt, $47,000 in student loans and several months behind on rent. A Tyler had been dismissed from 2 earlier jobs for mistreatment of customers. A Amanda had lied about her qualifications and faked references to get in the door. All 3 were living versions of what they mocked: struggling, vulnerable, and desperate in ways they'd hidden long enough to feel superior. Violet studied the pages, then looked out over the city where people from every background jostled for space and dignity. "Now we show them," she said softly. Underestimating someone because of their looks can destroy a life, and sometimes it destroys a career. They thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. People you called expired customers is already in the hands of our legal department. And Amanda, Violet's voice cut like glass, the Telegram group you created has been reported to federal authorities for privacy violations and defamation. Every image you shared without consent is now evidence. The silence that followed was unbearable. Jessica sobbed uncontrollably. Tyler's hands trembled as he looked around, searching for a way out. Amanda collapsed into a chair, whispering, "Please, I have a child." Violet's tone, however, remained composed, almost maternal, but colder than marble. "I didn't come here today to fire you," she said, her eyes steady. "I came to educate you, and everyone watching. You see, what you did isn't just unprofessional. It's inhuman. You laughed at poverty, mocked struggle, and found amusement in the pain of others. But the universe has a strange way of returning the energy we give out." At that moment, Marcus connected his tablet to the bank's internal system. On every employee screen, in every branch of First National Bank, a live message appeared. "Integrity audit in progress." A message from the founder. And then Violet's live feed filled every monitor across the country. She stood tall in the center of the lobby, the marble floors reflecting her presence like a mirror of authority and justice. Her voice, calm yet powerful, echoed through the speakers. "To all our employees watching this, today is a reminder. Every person who walks into our doors deserves respect, not because of what they wear, not because of their balance sheets, but because they are human. When we forget that, we lose more than customers. We lose our humanity." Camera flashes began to pop outside the glass doors, journalists who had been tipped off by Violet's PR team. Social media was already exploding, the homeless woman who owned the bank. Tyler's phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. This time, it read, "You were warned. Some appearances can be deceiving. Now you know how it feels to be judged before being understood." Violet looked around one last time. "Mr. Davidson," she said softly, "I'll leave the administrative procedures to you. Their employment is terminated effective immediately. But I want something more meaningful than punishment." She turned toward the trembling trio. "You will each receive an invitation, mandatory, to attend a 6-week volunteer program at our community outreach centers. You'll serve food, handle donations, and meet the people you mocked. If, after that, you still believe you're better than them, then there's nothing more this world can teach you." She picked up her briefcase. "Marcus, let's go." As she walked toward the door, the crowd outside erupted in applause. The same city that had ignored her 3 days ago now watched her like a living symbol of poetic justice. Jessica hid her face. Tyler covered his eyes. Amanda wept openly. Outside, under the morning sun, Violet paused for a moment and looked up at the giant logo of First National Bank gleaming above the entrance. "Money can open doors," she whispered to Marcus. "But respect, that opens hearts." And with that, she stepped into her limousine. Inside, Marcus turned to her. "Do you think they'll learn from this?" Violet looked out the tinted window at the crowd of reporters and ordinary citizens gathering in awe. "Maybe," she said quietly. "But even if they don't, the world just did." Approached with a humble smile. "Ms. Washington," he said softly, "I wanted to thank you. The changes you introduced didn't just save this company's image, they changed how people treat each other here. Even customers notice it." Violet nodded, her gaze distant yet satisfied. Through the glass walls of the new branch, she could see a young teller helping an elderly woman fill out a deposit slip, patiently, respectfully, with a smile. It was a small scene, but it meant everything. "That's how it starts," she murmured. "One act of dignity at a time." Marcus handed her another report, this one from the company's PR department. "Ms. Washington, you'll want to see this," he said, a hint of excitement in his tone. It was a news headline from the Financial Herald. "From homeless to hero, Violet Washington's dignity for all initiative inspires global change." Below it was a photo of Violet standing before a group of young trainees, the caption reading, "Teaching future bankers that humanity is the best currency." Violet smiled quietly, the kind of smile that comes not from victory, but from peace. It was never about revenge, she said, more to herself than to Marcus. It was about reflection. Sometimes people must lose everything to see themselves clearly. Marcus nodded. And you gave them that chance. She looked out at the horizon, the city skyline glowing under the late afternoon sun. No, she said gently. Life gave them that. I just made sure they couldn't look away. Later that evening, as Violet left the branch, she walked alone down the busy street. A man sitting on the curb, clearly homeless, looked up at her and smiled shyly. Without hesitation, she reached into her purse, pulled out a folded note, and placed it in his hand. For a warm meal, she said kindly. And remember, where you are now doesn't define where you can go. He looked at her, eyes wide with gratitude. Thank you, ma'am. God bless you. She smiled faintly and walked on, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. The sound echoed, steady, powerful, unbroken. As she disappeared into the evening crowd, a sense of quiet justice lingered in the air, the kind that doesn't come from punishment, but from transformation. And somewhere, in 3 different cities, 3 former bank employees scrolled through their phones, watching a viral video of Violet's latest interview. Dignity, Violet said to the interviewer, isn't charity. It's equality in its purest form. When you choose to see someone as less than you, you're not showing power, you're revealing weakness. Because true strength is measured by how you treat those who can do nothing for you. The video ended. Jessica wiped her eyes. Tyler closed the app in silence. Amanda whispered, "She's right." Violet's words had finally done what punishment could not. They had awakened empathy. And with that, the story of a so-called homeless woman in a bank became something much larger. A lesson carried across boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms around the world. Never judge a person by what they wear. Because one day, the person you humiliate might be the one who changes your life. Davidson approached carefully, his tone respectful. Ms. Washington, the press is requesting an interview. They want to know how you managed to turn such an ugly incident into something so positive. Violet smiled faintly. Tell them this, she said. Sometimes, we need to experience humiliation to rediscover our humanity. Those 3 employees gave me a gift, the chance to show that real wealth isn't in money or titles, but in treating every person as if they matter. She paused by the door, glancing toward a young teller helping an elderly man fill out a form with patience and care. A quiet warmth crossed her face. The best revenge, she said softly, is not destroying the people who wronged you, it's building something so meaningful that their cruelty no longer matters. Violet turned toward the lobby, where customers of every age and background filled the room. I built this empire by treating people with dignity, she continued. They lost everything because they treated others like they were nothing. Today, First National Bank stood as a global symbol of fairness and inclusion. In every branch, one message hung on the wall for all to see. Every person deserves respect, no matter how they look, speak, or dress. And just beneath it, a smaller line that summed up Violet's journey perfectly. Never judge a book by its cover. You never know, the person you're humiliating today might be your boss tomorrow. If this story of justice and redemption moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us. Respect is the most valuable currency in the world.